and making time to sit here with me. My name is Sachin Agrawal. I'm a senior program manager on the System Center Advisor team. And so this, actually coming here, this is my first Tech Ed, but this session actually has a little bit of an extra double meaning for me and my team. So quick pop quiz to any of you guys out there that know about us. Do any of you guys know what our code name was before we were Advisor? Yell it out, somebody. Atlanta, that's it. So being here in Atlanta has thoroughly confused me because it took the last couple of weeks programming myself to say Advisor instead of Atlanta. And so if I slip up during the talk, please forgive me. When I say the word Atlanta, I mean the project, not the city. So I have a couple of goals here to go through with you guys. Basically, what I want to do is give you an overview of what System Center Advisor is. We're a new product in the System Center suite. We just became Advisor. We announced our name at the end of March at the Microsoft Management Summit. So I don't know if any of you guys were there. Was anybody here at MMS? So we got one guy. So that was a big day for us getting named. And then what I want to do is just kind of go over the key scenarios, what we're trying to enable for the IT admin role and the DBA role, how we're planning to make their lives, and your guys' lives, a little bit easier, drill into the architecture, and then kind of show you how easy it is to deploy and how you can use this actually in your infrastructure. In the end, when you guys walk away from this, I really want you guys to really walk away with one key thing, that System Center Advisor is a connection between you and Microsoft's knowledge of how to run servers well. And by extension, that means you guys, your connection with Microsoft support, and how that knowledge can be easily brought to your hands without a lot of work. So just keep thinking about that. I'll keep repeating that over and over and over again throughout the talk, so apologize for the broken record, but you guys will see this, how that comes together with the System Center Advisor service. So before we get started, quick round of questions. How many of you guys have used Advisor before or are currently using it? All right, nobody, so you guys are totally a fresh crowd. Any of you guys have at least heard about us before? All right, about half the room. Okay, so it's pretty fresh, so I'll make sure that I kind of cover all the bases and kind of explain everything about the product. Just to kind of know the audience, how many of you guys would kind of classify yourselves as an IT administrator? Your job is to keep upkeep on servers. Okay, that's the majority of the room. Any DBAs in the room? You got one or two. Any developers? Okay, one or two as well. So for the most part, you guys are IT administrators, and that's awesome because that's who we've been trying to go after and show you guys some love with this product. So hopefully you guys also appreciate that and walk away with that view. So for the majority of the room, when we started this project, we realized you guys have some very, very tough challenges in your job. It's very, very hard to be an IT admin. And really, there's a couple of scenarios that, if any of you guys stop by the booth, I kind of talked to some of you about this. But really, how many times have you guys kind of had a problem on your server and you see the error events happening in your event log, and it's error 123 XYZ unknown. I've never seen this before. So then what do you guys do? So what's your next step? Bing? Was that? Did I hear Bing? Bing? What? Okay. So yeah, you go to the search engines and you start searching, and that's when then the praying starts. You're like, please let this land somewhere. Please let this be useful. And you go on your merry way all across the internet, and you may find something, you may not. And in the end, you may find the right solution, but it's time-consuming. It's painful. You're doing a bunch of work that you really don't want to be doing. You have better things to do with your time. And similarly, for the DBAs in the house, how many times have you been told, hey, SQL Server is running slowly, go fix it? And how useful is that search in any search engine? Good luck on that one. So how do you, our mission really was to change that scenario around and really change what you guys do and how you can solve those problems. So goal here is for you guys to see how this Advisor project can really help you avoid these problems, improve your performance by giving you recommendations for things like settings that you can improve, and then in the end, reducing server downtime. So these are all the goals that we have for the project. So I think the easiest way for me to show you guys what we've done is just to dive right into a demo and show you what System Center Advisor is. So at a high level, this is System Center Advisor is an online service, and what you do is you install our agent on the servers you want to monitor, and the agents end up sending data up to the Microsoft System Center Advisor Cloud service. And we then analyze this configuration data and turn that into a bunch of alerts. And this is what you actually log into. This is a portal where I've set up a couple of machines that have been configured to send up a bunch of different alerts. And this is the view I get in once I log in with my Live ID. It's a pretty basic view right now. You get your listing of alerts here, you can see. But this is that first step of helping you identify problems. So instead of you guys waiting for an error to happen, here in this portal, we're alerting you about the particular problems hopefully before they cause an actual issue. So if we click on this very first one and kind of expand this section here, you see that this is actually some particular alert about a missing update. But really what the core thing is that this is file fragmentation errors, which can be actually really, really painful if you have SQL servers and your DB files get fragmented. And what you start seeing, and if this were to be unchecked and a lot of problems continue to happen, you'd start seeing, error 665 or SQL event ID 823. Again, how many of you knew those would be caused by this particular missing KB update before 2 seconds ago? Hopefully none of you. If you did know that, then wow, very impressed. But again, so now we've alerted you that you have this problem. And then as soon as you click on the issue, as you can see here, we give you all of the contextual information so you know why this thing is important, what it could possibly cause for you and issues in your environment. And then you see the information we collected. But then the final step is really the solution for you guys. How do you go and address and fix this problem? And this is where we really want to make this really easy for you. And so with a single click, you say click to view solution, every single recommendation you'll ever get in Advisor has a final solution for you. And if you log in, you see what's going on. You can see that this gives you all of the symptoms of what's going on on your server, the root cause, and finally exactly what you need to do for the resolution. In this particular case, it's installing a particular update. Now, some of you may ask, well, why are you telling me about installing an update? Doesn't Microsoft Update tell me about this stuff? Can't I just be up to date on patches? And the reality of it is that sometimes isn't enough. For the most part, it is. But what ends up happening is, for a lot of these bigger products like SQL Server and Windows Server, many updates get patched together into either a service pack or cumulative updates, and they go out every couple of months. And if you happen to be in that unfortunate situation where your server is affected with that problem in that couple of month time frame before that cumulative update's out, what's the process to go find this problem? Today, for you guys, it is very, very painful. Sadly so, but it is. You end up seeing that there's a problem, calling Microsoft support. They do a bunch of debugging. Finally, they'll say, oh, this is this problem. Go download it from this location. So as you see here, we've shortcut that entire process. Hopefully, we've identified the problem before it's affected your server, tell you about this particular patch, and then you go and download it, and you can apply it to your service. So that's just a super high-level overview so you guys kind of get an understanding of what we're trying to go do. There's a bunch of other stuff here I'll dive back into as we go back through the demos, but just wanted to give you guys a flavor of the system. So taking those customer challenges, we kind of one-to-one map them to what we actually want to go do and have benefits for you guys, and what are the things we want to go build. So as I mentioned, proactively avoiding problems. So we alert you hopefully before an issue brings downtime to your system. And then the next part is, well, once you have a problem, how do we help you resolve the issue more quickly? First one was by giving you the solution. But we also have a number of features here which help you diagnose problems that you may be having. So we track your configuration. And then we also shortcut the pathway to getting support from Microsoft support. And I'll demo all these features for you in a few minutes. And then finally, all of these things together we hopefully can help you reduce downtime by improving your performance and addressing these issues. So I'll just skip over the features because they're actually one-to-one on I'll just dive right into some deeper demos to show you exactly how this works in real life. I think you guys will probably like that a little bit more than me talking at you. So the next thing I want to show you guys is another particular alert here for SQL Server. And so in this particular scenario, this is what changed? What happened? How did we get into this state? So if we go and there's this particular issue that we created here, which is service principal name is incorrect. And until this rule came up, I actually had no idea what a service principal name was. But essentially, it's an AD link, and it allows you to log into your SQL Server. And so basically, if this alert's coming up, it means you're not able to connect to your SQL Server. It's just the connectivity is down. And again, like the previous one, we've alerted you to it. You can go address this particular issue. But the key thing here is now you kind of wonder, well, how did we get into this state? The SQL Server has been running well for the last 6 months, year, and suddenly it changed. Something happened. And this is where, this is where the online service piece of System Center Advisor comes on, the ongoing maintenance, the ongoing tracking. You can click on this and say View Configuration. And this actually takes you over to our configuration history view. So for each server that's connected to our service, because it's connecting and sending up configuration on a daily basis, we're able to track what changes have happened over time. So this is the, we call it configuration history. I call it the, haha, you're lying to me. And I know it. So right here, how many of you guys have had a server go down and you ask, well, what did you do? What did you change on this server? Nothing. Of course, that's always the answer. But in this particular case, if we looked at the SPN rule, we'll go back and I'll show you more details about it. But if you look and you say account and you see what happened, in this particular thing, you can see the previous value and the updated value of a server. Sorry, I shouldn't have changed the things. And put the date in the right order. And here you can see in the past what ended up happening was this particular server went from the account that can access it from a local network authority, local service account, to being a domain account. And somehow that changed. And if you go back to the alert, you'll see that that's the same account that has the problem with the SPN rule. So by that you see, okay, well, this got changed, who changed it? You can go figure out what happened and quickly debug it. Versus just saying, hey, connection isn't working. Is it on the database side? Is it on the app side that's calling the database? Try and debug it. So again, you just dive right into the issue. So with this particular rule as well, the context. Oh, sorry, skipped the rule here. So if I search for the SPN rule, so for this particular rule, when you look into it, again, here, this is an example of giving you all the context that you need. You can click, the context here tells you that there's a service account. It tells you that there's a missing SPN. So in this particular case, the service principal name wasn't added in, and you see that there's no misplaced or duplicate SPNs. Similarly, you can also then copy this to clipboard to send it out to somebody else who'd go fix it if you have to send it to your DBA. But then the final step is that say you're not able to go resolve this issue, and you're struggling, and you need more help. Clicking this will actually link you straight to Microsoft support into their sales channel. So those of you with Premier agreements, also this is a great tool. And eventually our goal is to send more and more contextual information. So when you actually reach the support agent, they're not saying, who are you? Tell me your first name. They're actually understanding everything about you. They've got a view of this information. And so how many of you have been on those painful calls where you're like, okay, I'm using SQL Server. Yes, I know how to reboot my machine. All of those things. Here, they've got the information. They've got that context. They know what's changed on the machine over time. And they can dive right in and help you solve the problem. So again, it's trying to expedite these flows for you rather than you sitting on those painful phone calls with support. So that's, again, trying to solve real problems for you guys. The next one I want to dive into is the other part of the knowledge that we have here on System Center Advisor is, I've talked about SQL rules so far, but we have knowledge about Windows Server, and particularly we have deeper knowledge on two workloads, Active Directory and Hyper-V. So the reasons we chose those are some of the ones that our customers were telling us they had the most problems with and wanted the most help with. So again, all you do is install the agent on these particular machines. They start sending up the data to the Microsoft Cloud. And this is a particular case where, again, there's Active Directory replication failures. And if any of you guys have ever tried to debug replication failures, it can be quite painful. But this has detected them before. They've sat around for a long time. And again, you can just go in, here's the answer to you. The knowledge article takes you right to the solution on exactly what you need to do. So we're covering multiple products, and eventually over time, our goal is that we'll go deeper and deeper and cover more of the Microsoft workloads. Just to give you another overview, so I quickly mentioned the config history, change history view, or the you're lying to me view. And then the other view we have here is the config snapshot. And this is essentially just because your machines are reporting up to us, we give you a holistic view of all the data points we're collecting. One, this is for you guys to see what data we have about your servers, so you know we're not doing anything funny with you guys. But secondly, this actually gives you a view of information that's actually kind of hard to find. Even for SQL Server, it's funny, it's hard to get a complete holistic view of all the different settings. And here you can just quickly navigate through any particular setting. You can do search terms for any particular thing you're looking for. And again, copy to clipboard if you've selected a bunch of different settings. So just making it easy for you guys to go do a bunch of views and quickly dive in. This question? It does, yes. The data gets uploaded once a day. I'll dive in a little bit later on the exact details of how that data flows. But yeah, the agent runs. It's actually if you guys are familiar with Operations Manager. Any of you guys running Operations Manager right now? Oh, actually, wow, a good portion of the room. So it's actually the exact same infrastructure. So if you already have Ops Manager, Advisor is a really easy add-on. It actually puts very little additional load on. But I'll dive into more details about that. Are there any other questions about what I just showed you guys? Okay, so the question was, this looks a lot like Operations Manager, and what's the benefit of Advisor over Operations Manager? That's a really great question, and I'll dive a little bit more deeply into it later on, but actually think of these actually as complementary technologies. Again, under the covers, we're using all the Operations Manager pieces. So it's the same agent and same ways of collecting data, but what the real value here that we've created is it's the knowledge base. It's this knowledge that we're creating, we're constantly updating, we're always creating new rules as new people call up and support gets new issues. We're constantly updating it. And the thing to realize for some of these rules is you took that knowledge base article rule that I showed first off, and probably in a month, that particular rule won't be applicable because it'll have been rolled up into a cumulative update for Windows. And similarly, what was used to be a great demo for me and recently got rolled up in SQL Server was a particular fix which actually created bad results in a SQL query if you used the like clause in a SQL query, which generally scares DBAs quite badly if their queries are returning incorrect results. And again, it was a KB article. If you had a certain set of configurations, this could affect you. Again, now that's been rolled up into an update, and we've removed it from our service. So there's a temporal aspect to the data that we're collecting here. Ops Manager has a whole other suite of problems that they're approaching and solving. So we can dive into some more details as we get later on in the talk. Any other questions before I move on? Yeah. Mm-hmm. If the issue, the underlying config issue goes away, and the next upload, we will see that issue having disappeared, and it'll go away. So it'll go away from our console, yes. So you can either, if you've gone and physically fixed it yourself and fixed the issue, you can just hit close, or 24 hours later, it'll be gone. So I'll just kind of talk about quickly what we just looked at. And sorry, the font is kind of small, but that was what we just walked through. Is the proactive knowledge aspect of Advisor. It's telling you these alerts happened, or telling you what you need to go fix before hopefully downtime hits you. So we talked about an unpassed scenario. There can be misconfigurations. Sometimes this SPN rule is a case of that. Other things that can cause data loss. We talked about backups, DB consistency checks, and SQL Server. And then we also highlight things where you may be in an unsupported configuration. So the worst case would be your you don't have some service pack installed, and then you try to call support, and they say, hey, sorry, this configuration isn't supported. So again, we're just trying to make it easy for you guys to continue to at least know what state you guys are operating in. Again, to go back to the operations manager question, we don't alert you when your server is unavailable, or if your server is having underperforming, the CPU is spiked for long periods of time. We're not collecting that type of information. That's where operations manager really is required, or another monitoring solution. And then we talked about the historical context and the configuration data. The data that we collect isn't an all-inclusive manifest of every setting on your machine. It's really focused on the key data points that customer support will ask you for or would collect off of your machine. So it really is just useful points for debugging. If you really want the full manifest, again, you'd have to go to the machine. This does two things when it minimizes the data upload to your machine, or up to the Microsoft Cloud, minimizing your bandwidth usage, and really just focuses in on the key data points. So again, any other questions? I'm going to dive into the architecture and then talk about how you would roll this out in your environment. Hyper-V, Windows Hyper-V. So SQL Server, it's 2008 and above, and Windows Server 2008. In the future, Exchange, SharePoint Server are definitely in our roadmap, coming closer. We don't know exactly when we'll have availability for those workloads. So I'll just do a quick overview of the architecture, just so you guys are familiar with the components, and then the rollout will become a little more familiar. So this box that I've brought up here, this represents your data center, or your environment, and really there's two key concepts. There's the advisor agent, which is the piece that collects the data off of your machine. That agent is the exact same agent that's used in Operations Manager. And the reason why it doesn't actually cause much overhead is the Ops Manager agent is very, very intelligently built, where if there's multiple workloads asking for the same piece of information, it uses cookdown and only collects that information once. So again, if you already have Ops Manager and you put Advisor on top of it, it's only the incremental data points that we look for that would be asked about. And then the point is that all of these agents then go through a gateway to connect up to the internet and to the Advisor service. And these gateways are really just very, very simple proxies, and it's just to give internet connectivity. So it just needs to have outbound connectivity on port 80 and 443 to go and initiate the requests up to the Advisor service. It's very, very lightweight, about 100 kilobytes of data per day per server that's connected to it. So really almost any machine can run the gateway. It doesn't need to be a dedicated machine in any case, or in any sense. Sorry. So every day, what ends up happening, the agent collects this information, takes a snapshot, and then sends it up to the gateway, and every night the gateway uploads it up to the Advisor service. We then parse over that information and create the alerts that you see in the dashboard. So every day this data comes up, and then similarly, the gateway then asks, hey, are there any new configuration points, any new rules I should go execute, any new things I should look for on these machines? And because we're constantly updating the information, this is where that live service piece comes in. We send down the new management packs, which is, again, just Ops Manager under the covers, down to these agents. The agents start executing those rules, and the next day the new information flows up to the cloud. So that's why us being part of a live service really enables this flow of the data constantly coming back and you guys getting the freshest information possible. So then finally, Microsoft Customer Support, they have access into this data when you have a support request, and then you can log into the web portal that you saw a little bit earlier to go view your alerts and your recommendations and config history. Question? It does work together. So the Ops Manager infrastructure it just sits there, and it'll reuse the exact same agent, and the two together will just be installed. And the agent has this concept called multi-homing. And what ends up happening is the data from your original on-premise Ops Manager goes up to that, and then instead of we pretend like we're a separate ops manager server on your on-premise, but actually that gets piped up to the Advisor cloud. So as far as your agent's concerned, it's just multi-homed. Just the information we require. So the information that the ops manager console and the ops manager server is asking for sends to the ops manager, and what we're asking for gets sent up to us. Any other questions on the architecture? Our management of the agents right now is pretty minimal. We are just an RC at this point. There is I'll show you actually what it looks like to deploy, and then the view you get for machine management. If you do change the agent to a new gateway, we have a tool that you have to run, which will just rehome it over. Hopefully, in the next couple of months, we'll turn it into a simple GUI for you to just type in the new. But right now, it's a command line. Any other questions? All right, well, we'll move on to the onboarding and deployment demo of basically how you can go and set up Advisor on your system. So System Center Advisor is very, very easy to go get set up and to go use in your environment. And I'll just walk you through the flow. So first, to create an account, just on the home page, you can go and create an account. And I'll talk about why this message came up. It says I'm already an existing member because you saw that first one I created. But I'll say, yeah, I want to create a new account. And it's a simple, very simple workflow you come up with. Just says, hey, service agreement. I encourage you guys to go read that. Type in your name. So we'll say it's TechEd11 demo. And then right now it populated my name just because I've been part of the system before, first name and last name, and then create. And that's all it takes to get started with System Center Advisor. That's all the information we ask for. When we do launch at the end of this calendar year, we will be an additional benefit to software assurance. So any of you guys who already have software assurance in your environment, you're already licensed for Advisor. At that point, there'll be another step where you have to type in your software assurance ID, but that's about it. So then we'll close that out, and you're now into the Advisor. So here you can see how I have multiple accounts that I'm a member of. And I'll talk about this multi-user feature, but this is actually really great for any of you guys who are consultants, IT consultants, who actually work either across multiple departments or you have multiple customers. And so now you can segregate each person's information and just very quickly switch between them. So here we'll log into our demo account. And to actually go and install here, it says, hey, there's no gateways detected just because we haven't logged in. And then normally, when you're installing for the first time, you'll get this pop-up that just says, hey, you have to download a registration certificate. This certificate is what bootstraps your gateway to the Advisor service. So anybody who has access to this certificate can start attaching machines to your account. So obviously, you want to guard this carefully. But it's just a simple certificate. You download it. I'll just save it over the old one I downloaded here. Replace that and close it. And then you download the agent gateway. I've already downloaded this. It's 30 megs, so to save you guys from watching little electrons fly across the internet, we'll just start up the setup. And so the setup just takes really literally a minute to go through. You click it. Again, there's just a simple terms of service, standard thing. So here now it asks you, do you want to install the agent and gateway? And this is, from an architecture standpoint, you can either install agents and gateways on the same machine if the machine you have has internet connectivity, or you can choose to have one or more gateways that are separate and have agents pointing up to that gateway. It's up to you guys to choose whatever your network topology is or what you prefer. Really, the only limitation is that the gateway needs to have outbound internet connectivity. We don't make any inbound requests. When you check the gateway here, it just gives you a message about kind of the internal network protocol. So it uses port 80 to communicate between the agent and gateways over web services. So again, just make sure that you enable that port on your firewall if it's being blocked. You set that up. So this step here, you just simply point to the registration certificate that you downloaded earlier. And that's if you install the gateway. And then if your environment has a proxy server, use this. This next checkbox, they allow only authorized agents to access the gateway. This is kind of an advanced security feature. come up and ask me later if you actually are really interested about this. But essentially, if you don't trust all of the traffic on your network, this way you can basically use Active Directory groups to say only these two machines can communicate to each other. So you create a list with the agent machines that you want to actually access for this particular gateway. Just additional security, optional. It's just a bit extra overhead. And you click next and install, and the thing will be done installing in just a few seconds. And now it's registering up to the cloud, so it's making that initial web service request, telling the cloud, hey, I'm here. And it's basically starting up the services. And that's what it takes to install Advisor and get it running on your machine. So compared to setting up a lot of infrastructure and a lot of complicated pieces internally in your network, this is actually really quite simple. Again, with simplicity, you don't get quite all of the controls you'd get in something like Operations Manager, but that's part of the trade-off. So if we come back to the portal, and then I refresh the page here, basically it says, hey, a new agent was detected, but it hasn't reported to Advisor. Wait up to 24 hours for that first piece of data to come up. Because the agent just sends data at the middle of the night, every night, you just kind of have to wait for the first set of data to come up. Once you do that, your portal will look just like what you saw here when I showed you before, and hopefully with a few less alerts. And again, if you are part of multiple departments or multiple companies, you can just quickly switch between your companies here. I thought there was a question out there. The question was, is there a way to force it the first time? There is a way to force it the first time. It's written in our documentation. It's a little funny, but yeah, you can force it. We don't really recommend it because sometimes you can get some weird synchronization problems with the data. Another question? Yep. Yeah, exactly. It just queues up the data, and so then the next day it just sends up everything it's got queued up. So if there was any alerts that were caught the previous day, again, this is a perfect reason why, again, something like Ops Manager or another monitoring solution is required, because this isn't real time. You're just getting data once a day. If you close off your internet connection, you don't know what's going on your service. So another great feature, just to dive into how we set up multi-user and multi-user management here on this particular account. If you want to go invite additional users in your group or other users to go use the company, simply click on Manage Users, and then you can just click on Add a User, and you enter in their live ID email. And what this does, it will send off an email to them. They get it, they have to click the link on it, and they go through a very similar onboarding flow that you saw, what we went through in creating the account. Ask them for their name, and then they're part of the account. At any point, you can cancel and click somebody and remove them from your account. And you can be a member of multiple accounts, and multiple accounts can have multiple people in it. So really, it gives you the maximum amount of flexibility of how you want to manage your particular Advisor install. And then, so the only other difference here too between administrator and user is administrators can close Advisor, can close the Advisor account, and basically that removes all your data from the Microsoft server, and they can also add and remove additional users to the account. A user can do every other piece of functionality, including ignoring and closing alerts. Is there any other questions there about how to use Advisor and deploy it? We will be releasing some scripts too as well in the near future for how Advisor can be scripted to be installed across a large number of servers. So if you have 100 servers, how we could use additional tools like SCCM to go deploy Advisor across your environment. So stay tuned for those if you're listening into Advisor. So I'll go back to the deck and make sure that I'm on time here. All right, so that was the deployment. So we talked a lot about Advisor and Operations Manager and how these two kind of go together in your environment, and why these are actually complementary solutions. I think really the key thing here is Advisor, we add knowledge on top of System Center, and our long-term vision, and the reason we've built on the System Center technology stack is that, in the long run, we can hopefully have a better together play where, if for those of you that use Operations Manager, the fact that alerts are currently in a separate web portal versus in your Ops Manager console, things like that can be improved and hopefully streamlined for you. And hopefully we can then reuse the entire Ops Manager stack. Are there any other questions about the differences between Advisor and Ops Manager and why the two work together? Question over there. So the question was, if you have the Ops Manager agent, do you also need to run the Advisor agent? You do have to run the setup, and all the setup does is actually just install our channel into the existing agent. So all it does is just adds a couple of registry keys, lays down the management packs onto the machine, and then the agent continues to run. And then the agent is smart enough to cook down the rules between the two homes and just send the data that Advisor needs to Advisor and the data Ops Manager needs to Ops Manager. Another question? The question was how many agents to the gateway? Right now, we have no known limit. Obviously, I'm sure somebody could scale that out beyond what a single gateway can support right now, but it's just because it is just a simple proxy. The biggest problem would be bandwidth. So the gateway has to upload 100 kilobytes of data per day per server. So if you were to expand that out and go beyond that, what it could upload in a day, you'd probably start running into issues. But that's a pretty large number. So far, because we're in release candidate, most people are testing us out, testing the waters with Advisor, so we haven't seen anything close to those limits. Question? Is it always a rebootless install? It is always rebootless, yes. The question was, do all the machines you administer have to be in the same domain? They do not, but for the agents and gateways to communicate, being domain joined is important. It makes it much simpler. Now, if they aren't domain joined, they need to have network connectivity, but you can come talk to me afterwards, but you have to basically ensure that the machine account on the agent has access to the share on the gateway, or access to the port 80 on the gateway, sorry. The question was, if you have a large organization, how can you create a kind of a decentralized view? And really, the easiest way to do that is just to create multiple company accounts, what I showed you there. So if you have multiple groups, say different divisions, either geographically spread out or by vertical function, just create an account for however you want to separate it. And then I'll switch over to the view. And then here, you can just click on the drop-down list and flop between whichever accounts. And only the accounts that you have access to will show up on this drop-down list. And that's one way of filtering it. We don't really have within our single UI, a view of being able to switch between multiple groups. Any other questions on this side? All right. So just a quick thing about the server impact. For those of you that are familiar with Operations Manager, obviously you kind of understand what the workload is. We're doing exactly the same thing. We're just running the Ops Manager agent. But the data that we do collect, a lot of people are quite concerned about this. First, you can always see the data we collect within the System Center Advisor console. It's all there available in the config history. But the key thing that we're always looking at is really diagnostic data, configuration settings, and error settings. And we never, ever collect any of your customer data, any custom data, any of your workload data. Like custom workload data. So your data is your data. Microsoft never sees it. Again, and from a privacy standpoint, we have a very detailed privacy statement. Again, I encourage you guys to go read that and see the details, what's in there. But Advisor only has visibility to the servers which it's running on. So wherever you deploy the agent, so if you have some high sensitive servers, don't deploy Advisor on it. And then when we do upload, the information is cached on your server for 5 days, and it's just stored in a CAB file, a compressed file. So you can open that up, see all the XML files, see every single data point we've collected. So it's all very transparent for you guys. And again, if you have concerns about how you can go look at that data, come see me afterwards. I can kind of show you the details of that. And it's fully configurable. You can configure, you can tell it to stop uploading at any time, and you can change anything you want. And when you do close the advisor account, we will remove the data from our back end. Right now, our privacy statement says it'll be removed within like 30 days of commercial availability, and we will keep purging all the data, basically. So your data is safe. You're in control of your data. You can close your account, and we'll get rid of it all. Oh, and the last one that's also very important, which we will not use this information for sales or licensing validation. So don't have to worry about that front. We're not allowing our business folks to come after you. We promise. So high-level roadmap, kind of going back in time. We released our beta release, which was just SQL Server only in November, and we announced our release candidate in March. And this is where systemcenteradvisor.com came to life. So again, go to the website, try it out. Right now, we're available to all customers in the US. We don't have any blocks internationally, and we'll be announcing more international availability in the coming weeks or so. And we added SQL Server and Windows Server content. At the second half of this year, so before the calendar year is over, we want to be released in our full version. Again, most of you guys are probably already licensed through it, through Software Assurance. And then we'll be continuing to add additional workloads. Somebody mentioned Exchange Server. So Exchange Server and SharePoint Server are high on our list, so is Link Server, and a few other Microsoft workloads, and additional details on Windows Server. Any other questions about this? Question was, are there any problems on virtual machines? No. So there's two things. One, you can run Advisor on the Hyper-V host itself, and we have a bunch of knowledge to help solve problems with Hyper-V host. Secondly, you can run us on the virtual machine itself, and we actually detect if it's a virtual machine, so you can come and see in the config history, is this machine a virtual machine or not? We also, just in a slightly aside, we do support clustered machines as well. So if machines are clustered, we do show that appropriately. There are some weird kinks if you're doing some really advanced clustering scenarios, and if that's important to you, come see me afterwards. I can kind of walk you through some of the pitfalls there. Any other questions? The question was, is software assurance the only way to purchase Advisor? Today, yes, that is the only way. So it's software assurance on Windows Server or SQL Server. And then there'll be software assurance for any additional workloads as we add them. Sorry, I couldn't hear you. Yes, so the licensing term says you have to have software assurance for the particular client that Advisor is running on. Any other questions about the licensing or how availability? So the question was, will we go back and grab older versions of Microsoft workloads? That's a good question. I think actually this is a great opportunity for you guys to actually give us feedback on that and to really understand the need and the demand. Right now it really is about who needs that information. And so if there really is a demand for it, we will prioritize it. So, which is a great call out for, later on I'll give you a link to if you want to become part of the Advisor TAP program. We're looking for early adopters who can get our next set of features early. We love the feedback, so if you really want to help drive the future of Advisor and really impact the service, definitely I'll have the email address or come see me afterwards and we can exchange business cards. Any other questions before I go on? All right, so just to wrap up the summary of what I showed you in Advisor, kind of how we started off and what we kind of tried to deliver on. We said, hey, IT admins are having problems having a problem when these issues occur. How do they go solve them? It's taking them a lot of time. So we said, hey, let's take a look at what Microsoft CSS engineers go do. They have a checklist of things that they go look for. So let's go turn that into a system and actually turn that into something that's encoded. And then we update that regularly, make it an online service so that information keeps continually being updated to clients. And then finally, automate it, store that information in the cloud, and then enable CSS to have that data to streamline that workflow, and then track that information over time to give you a simplified view and easier diagnosis of those issues. So that was what we tried to build. Hopefully you guys see how all this comes together and can really help you guys solve problems. I guess now if I go back to that original problem of looking into the event log and binging the error codes, how many of you guys want to go back and do that or switch to Advisor? How many of you guys can see how Advisor can help you save time and save you from going through that? So most of the room raised their hand, so I feel like you guys get the idea. So again, next steps, go to systemcenteradvisor.com. Try it out in release candidate form. It's widely available. Anybody can download. You saw the steps I did. That was on our live site. Go and download it, play with it. If you are interested in becoming a member of our TAP program and getting kind of the early features, this email address here, atltapnm, which is a nomination, come up and I can write it down for you. Or we can exchange business cards. I also run the TAP program, so you can just email me directly. And I'd love to hear from you guys, any feedback you have. Similarly, there's just a few requirements for the TAP program to be part of it. You need to be a US-based company. If you play with the release candidate, also one key thing I wanted to highlight to you guys, there's a big feedback button here on the top right on every single page. Would love to hear your feedback. We're a small team. We check the feedback daily. We make sure we respond to everybody. So if you do file a bug, it will eventually get responded to. Maybe not immediately, but within a week or so. Question in the back. The question was, what will be the upgrade path when we go to the final release? We want to make that as painless as possible. Right now, we're looking at there may be a chance that you need to reinstall the Advisor agent, which is that connection up to the Microsoft Cloud. But other than that, it might be just asking you for that additional software assurance ID. So the most painful it would be a reinstall on the agent. But you saw how quickly that goes, and it will be automatable at that time. Question? No, just for the TAP program. Any other questions? Well, that is the detail. That's pretty much everything I wanted to cover. So again, kind of the overview of what I wanted to accomplish with you guys, give you an overview of the system, drill into the architecture so you guys understand what's going on. And key thing was for you to understand how Advisor really is a connection between the Microsoft's knowledge of how to run servers and bringing it down to your machines in an automated way. So if you have any other questions, feel free to come up after the talk, and look forward to seeing you guys start installing and playing with it and your feedback. So thanks again. Thank you for making the time, and I really appreciate it.